Welcome to another episode of the Focus and Bloom podcast. Joining me today is Jeremy Nicolaides, who is a business coach who was previously a visual effects producer. And he's going to be sharing today his story on how he pivoted his career and now is a business coach to creatives. Stick around. This episode is brought to you by Video Marketing for Creators, my very own course where I show you how to put together a plan and a strategy that will help you share your message and give you the confidence you need to show up on video and press record. Visit focusandbloomstudios.com, learn video to get started. That's focusandbloomstudios.com/learn video. Hola creators, I'm Yesenia Bocaneira, founder of Focus and Bloom Studios. I'm a photographer turned marketing strategist who took a leap of faith, moved over 3,000 miles away from home with one camera and one heavy suitcase filled with dreams. If you're a creative soul and dream maker, this podcast is for you. Here I share actionable tips and tactics on marketing, business, and mindset to help you grow and up-level your business with purpose and lots of joy, one action item at a time. Get comfortable and let's get started. This is the Focus and Bloom podcast. Jeremy, welcome to the Focus and Bloom podcast. How are you?
I'm doing great. I am so happy to be here. Thank you so much for having me on.
Thank you for joining me. I'm very happy that we got a chance to connect first on Facebook and then chat a little bit before starting the recording and just know a little bit about your story and what you're going to be sharing with us today. But before we dive into that, can you tell me a little bit about your story?
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. I have a huge film background, right? So I was born, I'm like third generation film industry. My grandfather worked on I Love Lucy and Beverly Hillbillies, and my dad's still in the business today. I've got aunts and uncles, and I grew up saying I was never going to be in the film business. And then, they just clawed me in. Well, really, I was working as the true story is after school, after like college and stuff, I was working as an illustrator. And I finally, I'd gone to art school and studied and learned these techniques and became an illustrator. It was like super exciting. And after 4 months of having this job, I lost it. And the company that I was working for, they lost their main client, which was Disney. So I was doing a lot of Disney DVD covers and ads and other ads like Tony the Tiger, the Keebler Elves and that kind of stuff. But because a majority of the work went away, and it's not that the company did anything wrong, it was the nature of the business. And I was the last one hired, so I was the first one fired. So after 4 months, I was just devastated. And it was depressing. I was like this young 20-something-year-old dude who finally thought he got somewhere, and then it went away. And my dad kept telling me, hey, you should go meet my friend. He's a visual effects producer. Maybe he's got something for you. And I'm like, Dad, for real? Like, I've got a portfolio. Like, I literally have ink on paper. Like, what? Like, this guy makes movies. What am I going to do? He's like, just talk to him. He's a really nice guy. And then, so finally, after a couple of months of pushing that away, I needed money bad enough that I was like, okay, I'll talk to anybody at this point. And so I met with him, and sure enough, he's a super nice guy. He's now, like, to this day, he's a dear friend. This was, 20 years ago. But the studio that I started working for, my first job they hired me was to clean the dust and the hairs off scanned film, right? So they would scan in the movies. This was before it was all digital. And frame by frame, I'd paint out little dust and hairs. And that's how I spent my days.
Gosh. I have a photography and film background myself. I've only shot film once, but I like film like video. But then I did my photography side. I did start with film. So I'm just picturing myself looking frame by frame. Like, I can totally picture that.
Yeah, it was, I listened to a lot of books on tape during that time.
Wow.
I guess it wasn't tape. It was digital by that point, but you know what I mean, right? I listened to a lot of stuff and just zoned out. But the cool thing was, was these guys had a specialty of working on 3D films. And so I looked around, everybody's wearing these paper 3D glasses, and I put on these glasses and I'm like, wow, you guys do this for a living? This is amazing. This is so cool and so fun. And I didn't know this like world existed, right? And so long story short, I just took every opportunity to learn. I dove into photography big time because that's the core of the image, right? And then I was taking more classes and just learning everything I could. And I grew, and like really quickly within, 5 years, I was supervising these 3D projects. I became what's called a stereographer, right? So it's like the photographer for a stereoscopic image, right? Because you have two cameras, one for each eye, right? And making these 3D movies. And I was doing really good. And so Avatar comes out, right? And the whole world is introduced to 3D again. And him and Jeffrey Katzenberg are standing up on their pedestals and saying, hey guys, like, we're helping all the theaters in the world get these digital projectors. This is the way to do it. You got to go watch 3D movies, right? I'm like, wow, this is amazing. This is great. And so my value overnight exploded. And I got hired. I started getting consulting jobs. And one of these consulting jobs led to a position of being global creative director. And we built this company, this post-production company, from 50 people in LA to 3,500 people worldwide in 18 months. And it was LA, Vancouver, London, and Mumbai. And it was awesome. And I was, being in my position, I was flying all over the world. I made sure it was like in my contract that I had to fly first or business. So like I get to fly fancy. And I mean, one time I flew, this was like one of those like really cool moments. I met, like, obviously was meeting, these were all like top tier movies, right? Like the top of the top, right? And the filmmakers and the studios. And so they fly me out to London for a meeting, right? I was like, wow, like I'm flying to London for a meeting. How cool. And to meet David Yates, who's the director of the Harry Potters, right? And so I fly to London and go out to the set, and I've got a little team of people with me to bring a monitor and a computer, and we set up inside this tent outside of their set and pitched Harry Potter in 3D, right? And we eventually end up doing just about every Harry Potter. We even went back and did the old ones, but super cool, right? And so on top of the world, and that's kind of where, I don't know if we want to pivot here, but I'm going to start going into
go for it.
How it like, or should I just keep going? Okay, so
yeah, because that was my next question. Like, what was that pivoting moment in your career? So yeah, keep going.
So I'm on top of the world, right? But something is missing, right? It gets to the point where the machine is built, right? So much of the 18 months, 2 years was getting this thing into place, training a team of people, and it all kind of got to this point where now I'm just sitting in an office on my phone and in emails, and I still go to the theater multiple times a day. So in the office, with any office, right, we have our own theater. We had 3 theaters actually, and they would call me in to look at stuff and give my opinion, and supervisors from different places or different locations around the world would send stuff for me to look at, and I'd tell them about it. But for the most part, it became a bit soul sucking, to be honest. And no disrespect to the company that I worked for, they weren't doing anything wrong. The people were great, the company was great, but I wasn't feeling fulfilled. I realized that my opinion didn't really matter, right? It wasn't. I was chasing this creative dream, this dream to be creative and to really just spend my time having fun and being creative. But nobody really cared at the end of the day. It was whatever the studio wanted or whatever the filmmaker wanted. And I didn't, and even like there was a time where I put together, I knew this, for the first time we were getting to do the movie and we had full creative control over it. And I was so excited about it. And it was a big superhero movie.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah. I put together this amazing plan. I took into consideration the story, right? I read the script inside and out. I was taking into consideration the viewer and the audience. And I put together I put charts together. I put together this amazing presentation for the studio. And then the studio says, and they called and said, you know what? Never mind. We're hiring this third party to oversee the creative, and you guys are just going to do the work, right?
Oh no.
And I was like, okay. But I was still optimistic at that point because I'd done all this work, so I'm going to present it to them, right? And so they come in, and so in 3D, right? You've got it's like story. There's like an ebb and a flow, and there's high moments and low moments. And so I've got this graph, and I'm showing them, and it's like wow, 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 and I'm super excited. And then at the end of it, the guy's like, "Nah, I don't believe any of this. I'm just gonna, I'm gonna set the dial to 7, and we're just gonna just run it this way all the way through." So and I was so defeated. I was like, "What?
Wow.
Really? This could be so amazing, and you're just not into it."
I just felt like this, like gut wrenching, like, ooh.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So that's when I started looking for a change,
We were talking about this for a bit before the actual recording where, I was telling you that I was reviewing your profile and in preparation for this recording, and commenting like, "Oh, how cool! It sounds like that you're working on these really big projects." But then it's like, well, yes, but then there is more to that, and it's
Yeah.
I'm glad that you share that with our audience, because there's so much more to life than just having a really cool job. That it could be a very cool job and you get to
Mm-hmm.
have so many opportunities, whether that is travel, meeting people, or create, or being a part of a really big scope of project like you were. But then there's also that, that purpose that's inside you that very well could be fulfilled by all of that. Or maybe maybe at a certain point, there's just that is not enough. Like
Yeah.
there's a different
Yeah.
purpose there. So yeah, and that happens a lot, especially with a lot of people who are pivoting from the traditional 9 to 5, having a very secure position in a big company, for example, and then feeling that there is something empty that needs to be fulfilled. And that's where those questions start coming in, and that you start thinking about pivoting into something different. You may or may not know
Mm-hmm.
what it is, but just something different.
No, I was gonna say I could tell you where I pivoted to.
Well, yeah. What was that pivoting? Now that you've realized that there was something missing, what happened?
Maybe it was a little bit of it was kind of this moment of serendipity, right? Where at this moment in time, where everything was, I was having this feeling, the company was going to close the LA location, right, where I was working, and because a lot of the work was leaving Los Angeles at the time. It's since come back, and it's a very global, like the idea of Hollywood. Like people think of Hollywood as a location, but Hollywood is more of like this like
Network.
yeah, it's a global place that just exists everywhere, right? But so they were going to close down LA, and I happened to be courting my now wife, right? I had like met a woman, and I was falling in love, and so they're like, "Hey, we're going to close down LA, but we want you to come up to Vancouver. We'll just relocate you to Vancouver." And I turned it down, and I was like, "No." Between not feeling, I didn't say this to them, but between not feeling fulfilled and then meeting this amazing person, starting a relationship that I didn't even know was possible, right? Like, I mean, I didn't even think, I thought like love, like true love that you hear about was only in the movies, right? Like me, everything is just like related to movies, right? So, but it turns out it's real. Like, hopefully, like everybody knows that, but like this is like real thing, right? And so I walked away. So I just walked away from this, massive job. The cool factor, like we've talked about, cool factor was through the roof. It paid extremely, extremely well. And I just said, I'm out of here. And so I had some time, right? I had some time. You were just kind of talking about it, about you got to figure it out. I didn't know what I wanted to do, right? And so I had some time. I knew I had 6 months where I could just do whatever I wanted to do. I didn't have to worry about anything, right? And so I actually really embraced the photography side of me. Everything I had a huge photography background, because film at its core is photography, right? And so to be able
Yes.
to communicate, right, and do things, you have to understand everything about photography. And so we started taking road trips. I live by the beach. I started taking a lot of photography at the beach. I had alarms going off at sunrise and sunset, and I'm going to run across the street real quick. I got to go take a picture. The clouds are out. There's clouds. There's clouds. Put dinner on hold. There's clouds. Right in LA, we like rarely have clouds, right? So like I get a sunset with clouds. I got to get out there. I'm looking, and I could see the break in the clouds on the horizon. I'm like, baby, the light, it's going to come, it's going to bounce off the water, it's going to light up the clouds. Like, I gotta go. Right? It was awesome. So I loved it,
Cool.
right? Like, you could just feel the energy. It was so awesome. But then the thing was, how am I going to make money? How am I going to replace the income that I just said goodbye to, right? And so it wasn't until somebody one day said, "Hey, your stuff kind of reminds me of Peter Lick." And Peter Lick, is a huge like landscape photographer. I had seen his galleries. I don't, if it was like Maui or Honolulu, I'd see he's got a gallery there. He's got one at the Venetian in Vegas. I mean, I don't know if it's still there after everything the world just went through, but right, it's like,
Yeah.
but super awesome stuff. Clearly, extremely successful. I think he was like getting the highest paid like prints, or I shouldn't even say a print, but selling his photography for the highest price, right? Like a $3 million print or something. So I started looking at what he was doing, and he clearly had his own, within his business, like his own print shop. He was printing his own stuff. He had his own framing he was framing his own stuff. He had a team of people working on his images and whatnot. And so I was like, I need to do that. That's what I need to do. So I convinced myself that I needed to buy a printing company or a framing company. And so I started looking into stuff. So I ended up buying a print and marketing business that's local in the neighborhood. And it turned out to be a disaster. It was like, most people would say this was the worst experience of their life, and they're never going to own their own business ever, 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 ever again. Right. And, but we made it out alive. But we got to the point where we ran out of money, right? Like I knew I was buying a business that needed to be turned around, that needed to be fixed up. The owner, had owned the business. He started it, had owned it for 7 years, and was just getting tired and lazy and wanted out. So it was on the decline. But I was like, hey, I just built this team of 3,500 people worldwide. I could do this. This is no big deal. The problem is you don't know what you don't know. And I didn't know a whole lot, right? And so, I got into this vicious cycle of trial and error, right? And it was like, I'd run into a roadblock. I was like, okay, what's happening here? And it was like trial and error, trial and error, trial and error. Got it. And then I keep going, and then boom, another roadblock, trial and error, right? And that cycle continued. And what I thought was going to take 6 weeks to kind of clean the place up physically and system wise and get it all worked out took like 4 months.
Wow.
What needed to take 4 months to like get the revenue generating and it really taking care of itself took a year, and it was really painful. We ran out of money. I ran out of places to borrow money. Like the credit cards were full, the bank loans were done. We borrowed money from the family. I mean, I came home one day and found my wife crying, my newlywed wife, right? Like it was like our first year of marriage. And, she's crying because she doesn't know how we're going to pay the bills, right? And I had been thinking about it and feeling the same way. We just hadn't really had that conversation of like, oh my God,
This is for
so
real.
this is for real, for real, for real. And it was bad. And, we, in that particular moment, something, a job came in and we figured it out and we got through it. But it was, I mean, we're talking peanut butter and jelly sandwiches for lunch every day. I wasn't going to Starbucks anymore. We weren't going out to eat. It was painful. It was really, really painful. But, I came across podcasts and eventually coaching and masterminds. And I started learning from other people on how to, what I needed to do, not like mindset wise, systems wise. And they filled in the gaps professionally in that business knowledge that I didn't have because I was a creative, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so I knew all that inside and out from the teams, and I could sell creative stuff, but I didn't know the business side. And so that then helped. And so it took about 18 months, but we turned that thing around and got it to the point where it was 80% passive. Because the whole idea was it was supposed to support my photography business, right? And like
Right.
photography was out the window. Like I hadn't shot a picture in a year. It was bad. It was bad. I said it. Most people would say this was the worst experience of their lives. I think for us, we made it out alive. We learned so much from it, and I think we're on a much better trajectory because of that, right? Because of that experience. And failure is not a bad thing, right? You just, as long as you learn from it and you keep going, you'll be all right.
By now, you've heard that video is a key tool to help connect, grow, and scale your business. If you're unsure of where to start, you'll want to check out Video Marketing for Creators. In this course, you'll learn the technical side of how to produce professional looking videos with minimal gear while learning how to put together a plan and a strategy that will help you share your message and give you the confidence you need to show up on video and press record. Visit focusandbloomstudios.com/learn video to get started. That's focusandbloomstudios.com/learn video. Now let's get back to the show. Yeah, I'm glad that you mentioned that because a lot of people feel very afraid of starting a business because of that fear of failure. And well, while there is a true fact that we don't know what we don't know, and we don't know what's going to happen, if it's going to work out or not, because there's so many variables. But knowing deep down that, hey, this is what I should be doing, then that there should give you that courage to check it out, try it, see what works out, what doesn't work out. And if it doesn't quite work out, that is a learning experience. But you have to be open to knowing or identifying these learning moments so that when you do the next thing, then you can apply what you've learned and then feel even more confident as you move forward.
Mm-hmm.
So What are some of the lessons that you learned during that process that you feel were instrumental in now building a what you currently
Mhm.
have a successful coaching business?
Yeah, I think, coming out of that, and we hit on it, some of the key points. I mean, number one, right, is you have to model success, right? You have to learn from others, right? That's what we're here for. That's what I'm here for. This is what you're here for, right? Like you help people and their business, right? And their photography business, right? And that helps fill in those knowledge gaps, right? That we know, right? I just saying trial and error killed us, right? Had I not found somebody when I did, we could be we might not even be talking, right? Like we wouldn't
Right,
even be
right.
talking to each other. But luckily I did. And it's not that you have to find somebody that is like, leaps and bounds and light years away from you. They just need to be farther down the path than you so that they can say, hey, watch out. You're going to have to leap over this creek and step on this rock. And you're not going to have to figure out how to get across this ridge because they've done it and say, here it is. Here's how you do it. And it might not be like exactly how they did it, but they're going to give you enough information to reduce that time, that trial and error time, right? Because that trial and error is going to suck up your time and your money. And you can get money again, but you cannot get your time back, right? We can't get it. It's gone,
That's so
right?
true.
Right. So I think modeling success is huge. And then the other one that I didn't know, and this was a big part, and I didn't understand why like my bosses and my CEOs and owners of the past were making certain decisions. But you have to understand your market. You have to know your market, right? Remember I said my opinion didn't matter and that like crushed me? Now my
Yeah.
opinion doesn't matter is like at the core of what I do, right? So when we help people, it's my opinion doesn't matter. What I'm doing doesn't matter. It's like what are our clients and our customers? What matters to them, right? And that's how we are doing things in service of them, right? And so how do we know where are they hanging out? Where's the market? Like a market's a place. Where are they? What are they used to seeing? How are people talking to them? What are the offers, right? How do we structure our offers and our communications based on what they're used to hearing and seeing? Even if it's different to us, we still got to start with what they're used to, right? And then we build this
Yes.
bridge to like our land of opportunity, right? And so it's like you got to model success, you got to know your market, but none of that matters if you don't take action and move, right? And so you got to go. You got to take imperfect action too, right? Like don't wait for it to be perfect. You got to go. Just go, 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 and you'll be all right, right? Like I said, like that was. And had I not bought that business, like I said, we wouldn't be having this conversation, right?
Yeah.
But I decided to learn how to swim by jumping into the deep end, which I do not recommend anybody learn how to swim that way. It worked out for me with business, though. Bad move. Don't do that.
Yeah, no. Oh, I like that you mentioned take imperfect action because a lot of people feel that it has to be perfect. And no, it does not have to be perfect. Just take action. Start. You have to start somewhere. If you don't start, you won't know what works and what doesn't work.
And in fact, you don't actually truly learn until you do it, right? You can study all you want. You can read all the books. You can get all the coaching and all the advice and all the expert stuff. But until you actually take action, you're not actually learning anything, right? That's where it all comes together. That's where the aha moments come into play. You're like, oh, I get it. This is what needs to be. And I need to do this and I do that. And you learn from it because, again, it's about your market, right? So you have to get that feedback. Until you start interacting, you're not going to get the feedback.
Exactly, exactly. And you mentioned earlier model success and modeling success could be in a variety of ways, like could be a mentor, could be a coach, could be if you're very much starting fresh out of college, it could be maybe an internship or something like that
Hmm.
where you're learning from somebody and you're taking that experience and applying it into what you want to build. So there's many ways that we can do that, but I think that's really helpful because you are seeing that other person that is a couple steps farther than where you are currently at, and then you can then see what's going on, what's happening, and then define whatever it is that you want to build and know
Yeah.
your
Yeah.
market for sure. I
You
mean, you
got it.
have
You
to,
got to
you just
know it.
have to, period. Absolutely. I have enjoyed this conversation. And I think that it's very important to be mindful that there are so many opportunities to be creative and share our gifts and talents and to make an impact in life. And however that might be. Could be working for being a part of a big project like you were, or maybe turning your skills and your gift into helping others, being able, helping them be successful and do what they love. And you mentioned the business side, like that at one point you were missing that business component. And that
Mm-hmm.
actually tends to happen a lot with a lot of artists. Like we in school, we get so many classes on how to draw, how to paint, how to photograph
Mm-hmm.
this, and it's the technical, the practical of the craft. But then the business side is like crickets. You
Mm-hmm.
barely learn about that in school. At least in my case, I in any of my studies, I only took one business class, and that was at the very end of my
Mm-hmm.
school years. And it's like so important. So if you want to take your creative skills and talent and make a living out of it, it is important to understand the market, understand the business side of things, because it's what's going to help you, build that successful business and create a life that you feel that fulfills you.
Absolutely.
Now that you are a business coach and you're helping other creatives, can you share what are some of your business favorite apps or tools that you use? Let's say two or three of your favorite that you use every day to get your business going and working for you.
So for me, there's and we talk about creatives, right? We talk about creatives aren't good at business, right? And we're not good at business because we don't want to do business. We want to be creative, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so we have to embrace it. So for me, what I've found the biggest tool, and it's not an app, it's not a piece of software, it's a team. And you have to work with people, right? And have people on your team and get people to do those things that either you don't want to do, you're not good at, it's not being creative. How do you protect your creative time? We have a team, right? You say, oh, well, Jeremy, that's easy for you to say. Well, you could just hire a team. I said, yeah, but I have two amazing VAs. I have two amazing virtual assistants that work for me in the Philippines, and they get paid really well for where they live, and it's a service, it's a provided, and so it's I'm not paying a huge amount of money to a big salary to somebody in California. Not that I don't hire people in California, but there is a way to do something, and you have to have a team, and there's certain things that you can do that you can hand off. You have to delegate, and you have to get them to
Yes.
do things for you. And so figuring out how to do that, I've hired family members, right? And I hire people. I go onto like different sites like 99 Designs, or different things like this logo. I don't know, like this logo on my shirt right now. I reached out and I found somebody I didn't care where they worked in the world, but I needed a logo designed, right? So I went online and I paid somebody to do it. Could I have done it? Am I creative? Absolutely. Would it have taken too long? Absolutely. The thing is, I would have cared way too much if I was doing it in the fonts and this, and I'm in Photoshop and Illustrator, and like 3 days later, I got this logo. Or I hire somebody and they send me these things, and it doesn't cost an arm and a leg, right?
Yes.
So that one. So team. The second one out that is an app that I love, that I can't live without, and I use every single day, is Loom. Are you familiar with Loom?
It's the name familiar. I don't, yeah, but I
So
don't use it, but the name is familiar.
yeah, Loom. What Loom is it allows you to screen record,
Oh,
right? So it
yeah, yeah, yeah.
records
Oh
it,
my gosh. Yes,
right?
I know which one it is.
Yeah. So it records your screen or a part of your screen or like a window, and it has a little circle in the corner with your face on it. And so this allows me to communicate with my team. So like my VAs, they send me social media stuff that they're working on, or the outreach and different things, and they show me it. And then instead of me having to type up this email and be really like specific and pick my words, I just click on Loom and say, hey, check this out. This is awesome. I love this. Don't do this. Let's move this. Like, I like this. Like, just fix this right here. Boom. Let's go to the next one. Boom, boom, boom. And in like 3 minutes, I've looked at like 10 different images, or I've gotten some point across. Or sometimes I just flick it on and just talk instead of like typing. I just want to talk. I don't want to type, right? I'm a much better talker, and it comes out faster and it's done. And the beauty of Loom is that it's just a link, right? So I'm not nobody's sourcing the file and the file size. And I just fire a link off to them, and we're in Messenger, like another app. Like I use Messenger like with the team constantly. And they get that and they watch it. I get an email that says they watch it. They can comment on it. They fire Looms back at me. And so Loom, oh, I love Loom.
I love it. And for some reason, I totally forgot the name of it, but I use it. I've been using it for a while, and it's really great. It's really such a great tool, especially when you're like if you're training somebody or if you're gonna hire a new like a VA or anything like that. That's such a huge, such a helpful tool for sure.
Yeah, I love it. Even I'll do it when I send out big like contracts or bids. If I'm sending some kind of, and especially now with COVID, I'm not normally I'd be in person or do something. I'd go over paperwork. I will send a document and I'll bring the document over my screen and I'll go through the fine points. And so it allows me to also kind of continue the sales part of it of like delivering my offer on paper, right? Because this is something I need them to sign, so I don't want them to miss something. But it also is just like this level of communication that's really helpful, right? And I'll give you one more. I'll give you one more real quick.
Yeah, go for it.
Is Calendly. Calendly, right? Is calendar app that just allows people to book time with you, and you can have different categories. But the beautiful thing, it's not so much about people can book with you and you can answer questions, but it links to my calendar, and on my calendar I can block out my time. This is my creative time. This is my time. You can't touch it, right? But this is the time where I want to talk to people. And then, so you just feed everybody to that. And then now you're organizing your time. And more importantly, you're protecting your time, right? Because that's your time can just evaporate, right? And again, we said this earlier, you can't get your time back, right? It's the most valuable thing we have. And so how do we protect it as much as possible? So I like that one.
Jeremy, I really like what you're sharing, these tips and the tools that you're using too as well. One of them was the whole idea of outsourcing. That is such an important thing because yes, you could have done that logo, but how much time could you have spent doing the logo versus taking part of that time and doing something else that's moving your business forward? So that's important. And it's, if you can't hire it right now, think about your pricing. That I know this is a mindset talk as well. But definitely just when you're starting a business or pivoting a business or restructuring your business, you want to think of optimizing your time as the founder, the creator of that business, so that you can have the business working for you, not the other way around.
Exactly. I love it.
Jeremy, this was such a great interview. Thank you so very much for taking your time. But before we leave, can you let us know how can people connect with you on social media?
Sure. You can find me Instagram, the Golden Octopillar. Is that there's dashes, there's underscores in between the Golden Octopillar. And Octopillar, in case anybody's wondering, Octopillar is the one word my wife and I didn't correct our oldest son when he started mispronouncing. And because I love octopus, we have like little octopus stuffed animals, and like it's around, and we were reading The Very Hungry Caterpillar, and so every time he saw an octopus, he said Octopillar. And it was like, oh my God, that's so cute. Like, don't correct him. I mean, he'll just learn over time. And yeah, he's 87, still says Octopillar. No, but so I'm like, I'm buying that domain. I bought it. And then it was when I needed to I needed a business entity. I'm like, I'm going to use it. But I just spiced it up a little bit with Golden. So, and then also on Facebook, the Golden Octopillar. And then also, I've got a Facebook group, Create and Live Free, for, creatives that want to just dive more into this. It's just to keep the conversation going and to support each other.
Awesome. Jeremy, thank you so very much. And everybody tuning in, you can check out today's show notes at focusandbloomstudios.com/show notes. I'll be sharing all these links and you can take a look at what we've talked today and Jeremy's really great tips on helping you build a business and living that creative life. Jeremy, once again, thank you so very much. And everybody, thank you so very much for tuning in on today's episode. I will see you on the next one. Take care.